Okay, so we've already started the meeting, but we forgot to hit recording. So you were explaining the runner platform and what problems it's going to solve, Thomas. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So we are today designing a new platform for hosted runners that ideally at some moment will be what we started to call a unified platform. So we will provide GitLab runner powers for GitLab.com, for GitLab dedicated instances, and maybe even for self-hosted instances in some way. But to get to that place, there are several problems we need to solve that we see today on the .com runners
Mm-hmm.
that we also see in the dedicated. And these problems start with so simple things like how our networking looks, because today for the .com runners we have multiple Google Cloud projects with multiple networks that are interconnected, and that creates problems of address conflicts. So we need to
Yeah,
maintain a list of addresses for different networks, which is just a maintenance burden. We already exceeded some limits for VPC peering in Google, so we had to
yeah,
redesign how that is done. That gave us some space, but if we are talking about 10, 100,000 bigger scale in number of workloads and supported customers in the future, we will again hit that problem. So one would say a very low level, very implementation specific detail, and this is really a problem we want to solve with that. The second big problem is the cost overhead. Like
yeah,
with our current auto scaling mechanism, everything works well as long as we have enough idle instances that are ready to take a job, which means that in big configurations like the what we call today SAS Linux Small AMD 64, the most popular runner that you can use on GitLab.com. It is most popular.
yeah,
We execute about 10,000, maybe a little less jobs at a single moment in the peak times, and we
yeah.
have almost the same number of idle instances that are not doing anything and just waiting.
Just yeah, yeah,
Here the good thing is that these jobs are quite short, so these instances are quite quickly starting to be used, but still we could calculate some number of instances that do nothing, just sit there. And
yeah.
we need to pay for them. So to make this platform available, matching all of the user required times for how fast jobs should be taken from the queue, we have a big cost overhead, and we need to somehow address that. So we are, for example, considering if we can improve that with Kubernetes usage, something we've been
Okay.
talking in the .com
Yeah.
runners since years, and now's for finally time to experiment with that. Today, we don't
And is
know.
that like running the user job inside of a Kubernetes cluster or the runner
Yes,
managing? Okay.
yes. It's also about running jobs in the Kubernetes cluster, because then we don't need to worry about auto scaling. We can defer that to GKE or AKS
Yeah.
in Amazon. We also can fit more jobs easily on instances. So
Yes.
the compression of workloads on the instances is much bigger. Again, we today provide different sizes of the runners. We will want to preserve that, at least for .com.
Mm-hmm.
So we will have to maintain different configurations, but for like this most popular runner, we today have to maintain a big number of machines with two CPUs that
Yeah.
sit and do nothing. With Kubernetes, we can use nodes that are way bigger and feed jobs that are using just two
Yeah.
CPUs by a request, multiple of them into one node. That of course means we need to find some way for providing good isolation that after some risk assessment fits our needs, and we feel that okay, that will be secure enough. But there is a good chance that this will help here. So this is a second big problem we need to address: how to maintain a way bigger installation that we have today with reduced cost. Because if we'll do
Mhm.
things like we do today, like even with cells, if we are talking today about adding one, maybe two new public cells with multiple tenants
Yeah.
in next few years, and there will be a business decision that we need to provide all of these runner configurations to each of them, then today we have, I don't know the numbers, but let's say we have a 1.5 overhead of the cost that we think we could reduce.
Yeah.
Multiply that by three, and we are starting to pay 2-3 times more than we probably could. So this is
Yeah.
a big thing we need to address.
Okay.
Then then
So the main cost is coming mostly from the idle machines, rather than the runner managers itself. Is that correct to say?
that's definitely the truth, because today we have like I don't remember the exact number, but something like 60 runner managers. They are using quite bigger machines, but this is still 60 instances that are constantly running, and most of them are
Mhm.
doing work. But
Yeah.
with the auto-scaled VMs, we scale up to few thousand, maybe even 20,000 every day, plus an overhead of idle machines that
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
nothing,
That makes
just
sense.
wait.
Yeah.
Like for now, this is not do nothing. This is we need that to fit into our SLI, but we should find a way how we could make these machines execute jobs and not just wait.
Okay.
So this is also what we are reviewing with this unified platform, because then if we will make it fully isolated, we can also simplify the configuration. And this is the third problem today. Configuration of our runners is spread across two main configuration projects, part in Terraform, part in Chef. Then we have several dependencies of different cookbooks for Chef. Then we have several modules for Terraform in
Yeah.
config management. And even if we would somehow place that into a single project, if you look on the Chef configuration alone, for a
It's a mess.
few
Yeah.
for
I'm
11,
familiar.
yeah, for 11 shards of runners. So in theory, just 11 different configurations. We have about 50 roles that we maintain. So there is a huge overhead here. And this is something we also want to simplify. I'm not sure if Kubernetes will bring any value here, but we anyway are thinking how to simplify that configuration, how to
Yeah.
simplify runner registration and management of tokens, which will be important when we're talking about cells. And getting back to the cells problem
Yeah.
here, like we will be creating these cells in the future when it will be needed, and I expect that there will be a requirement that when we create another public cell, we can quickly provide one, two, or all configurations
Yeah.
that we expect to be available for GitLab.com. And we need to be able to easily, quickly provide that power and not
Hmm.
spend like half month on manually creating this by hand until
No,
it's
I agree.
it's able to work.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
last problem is maintenance, like day-to-day maintenance, like the blue-green deployment that we did together. You
Yeah.
remember how it looked before
Mm.
deploying the platform where we had 3 shards.
Yes.
Then when we introduced blue-green, that was an awesome improvement. But today with 11 shards, I'm again back to a situation where when I want to update our runner version, just that, it takes me like 3 or 4 hours to prepare that, to make sure that
Yeah.
I don't mess chef roles, that I don't mess any chatops command. There is still too much manual steps that you need to remember about and make sure you don't mess them.
Yeah.
So making sure we have a simple configuration that's fully automated, where we can scale horizontally or bring new customers with just few steps, ideally with just committing one change in the configuration, having fully automated provisioning, resolving all of the interdependency problems, making like switching configuration to kind of autonomous system where each one can provide itself and just connects to some central parts like central Mimir cluster, central
Mm-hmm.
Kibana for log ingestion, or GitLab.com or other GitLab instances as
Yeah.
a source for repositories. These are the problems we're aiming to solve, and we expect when we will do that, that will be just like Kamil wrote that in the last comment, that will be a single external service, like a system as a service, hosted runners, where you
Yeah.
can go to and request, hey, I have my GitLab installation, it's here. Give me a Linux runner which will be able to provide me like two CPUs, 5 gigs of memory, and some disk space, and I will
Mm-hmm.
pay you for that. And in this scope, GitLab with all its cells is just another customer.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
And
And
then there is also like this is what you touched. I'm not sure if today we should provide separate runners for separate cells. I'm not sure if this is a one-to-one map we need to preserve because we will want to have fault tolerant and high availability anyway in our platform. But we will need to be able to provide. We may have a customer who will say, "Hey, I have here a self-hosted GitLab. I want to have your hosted runners, and I will pay for that, but I require to be fully isolated from
yes.
any other. I want to be in a dedicated cloud project with dedicated
Yeah.
fully isolated networking because this is the only isolation level my risk assessment can accept, and with if that will not happen, I can't use your service. So
Yeah.
our platform should be able to provide that, and in that scope it's then mostly a business discussion. What we need for sales, do we value more the reduced cost if we would provide the same runners for different cells with built-in high availability, or
And
is
the
it more,
review. Yeah.
yeah, or is it more valuable for us as GitLab to have fully separated configurations for every single cell? That will bring additional cost, that will bring additional cost of maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But we as GitLab decide this is what we want. That's mostly
Yeah.
a business decision, a product decision. The
Okay.
way how we want to design the platform is that we should be able to provide different ways of operation. So
Okay. So we're talking.
single
So
customer with three different GitLab instances. We are that customer. We have
mm,
5 today. .com,
yeah.
staging, ops, dev, and we have private runners on all of them. So a
Yeah.
single customer with 4 different GitLab installations that want to use a single space of runners because we want to have, I don't know, cache that's
Yeah.
shared is one case, and then a single customer that has a single GitLab installation and want to have 5 different runner configurations that are fully isolated. That's the opposite requirement that may happen, and our platform should be able
Okay.
to
So
support both.
so that was gonna be my question. So is the platform from an implementation detail? It could be either provisioning a runner manager for a single instance or sharing a runner manager and just updating the config.toml to point to another GitLab instance.
Yes,
Got it.
yes,
Okay.
I think we should support both because we already see both requests from the customers.
Yeah.
Like if you look on the dedicated customers, if you look on some of the different government customers that we have who have their own GitLab installations, but I think we have at least one request about could we provide some shared runners for them.
Yeah.
And there are customers that say we need to be fully isolated, like not you think that will be isolated, that needs to be at least a separate cloud account.
Yeah.
So if anything
So s-
will happen, we can go to the cloud provider and say, hey, how did you screw this up? This should be by your design in a
Yeah.
separate rack with no fiber going between them, right?
Yeah.
So we should be able to support that, and also the kind of operation that we have today with our .com runners that also support ops, dev,
Yeah.
etc.
Got it. Okay, so let's imagine this platform exists, and let's imagine cells exist as well. And we want to provision a cell. We either, when we provision a cell, we still have to communicate with this hosted platforms telling us, please give us a runner. Now, if it's either fully isolated or shared, it's still yet to be discussed. But like, how is that communication gonna work? Like, are we thinking just having a UI like through APIs? Like, do we just give you the like? Does the instance just give you the runner registration token or like the new tokens, I forgot them, um, and automatically register? Like, how do we know how that flow is going to work now or not yet?
Mm, what we plan today is that we want to configure that all through the GitOps approach. So any configuration that we will maintain will be maintained by some project with
But that's on the backend side, right? Like on the
yes,
platform backend side.
yes,
How is the client?
but then that's the technical part, how we want to maintain that. And at the beginning, I suppose we will just manually manage that repository. But with Git, if this will be just a structurized way of configuration in some, I don't know, YAML, JSON, JSON HCL for Terraform. That's
Hmm.
something that will be one of the first decisions we'll be making, how to abstract that configuration. But at the very end, it's just some text file where you will be able to provide what you need. That
Okay,
brings
so
us a possibility that for like here where we will have automated way to create another cell for GitLab, that automation can as well bring an update to that configuration. And our idea, one of the things we definitely want to have is that if we have like this abstraction, but there is no configuration yet in that project. We write the first configuration, we commit that, CI/CD pipeline starts, and it provisions everything that needs to be provisioned. Even if it means that it needs to request AWS or Google Cloud to bring it a new account or new project and
hmm
get access to that project and then start playing that with provisioning Kubernetes or autoscaling group, depending on what
hmm
we'll use, that process should be fully automated. So in
yeah.
scope of cells, uh, probably if the first protocol will happen early next year, we will just make it by hand and just provide you this configuration with one or few first runners. But looking into the future, you need to scale into the cell number 8. You have some automation that provisions that when that GitLab part is available,
hmm
you just automatically push a new update to that configuration, trigger a pipeline, and that should bring you the runners. We definitely want to automatize runner registration. For that,
hmm
it would need to have uh, some user account token. So
Yeah.
either admin for cells, because we will be working with instance runners. Self-hosted users would need to provide some token that is suitable to feed to like provision
Yeah.
runner into their project or group. Today you can create a token that is limited to just rotate itself and manage runners and nothing else. So that I think that should be enough. But there, I can imagine myself a customer who will say, I don't want to give you access to my instance. I can register a runner and I will provide you a token to use. That's something I think we should have in mind and maybe bring that possibility in the future. But today we are going to start with automatic registration. So we just need to have admin, group owner, or project maintainer
Yeah.
access to where the runner should be registered. So we point, that's the GitLab URL, its instance, or a group ID, or a project ID, and this is the token that you should use to make that API call.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So we provision a cell, we send, let's say, an HCL file and to an API somewhere as a payload, and then it will provision whatever. And I guess for us to decide is if we want them to be fully isolated, like the runner platform can have two kind of runners, right? Fully isolated or like a shared. I don't want to use shared because shared has already a meaning, but like um, a common pool of runners,
Yes.
runner managers, right? Okay. And now then up to us from a sales perspective is to decide if we want them to be fully isolated or not. We already have the fully isolated uh, need specifically for dedicated, right? Like people who want hosted runners on dedicated, they want full isolation today kind of thing, right? Like we already have customers on hosted runners for dedicated, as far as I know. Is that correct?
Well, yes, we have, because today, like, that is the only way we can provide them some runners.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that is definitely a requirement for GitLab. Like, because you can go buy a seat on GitLab.com, and you don't need
Mm-hmm.
to have any separated instance. So why even bother with dedicated? Well, some customers just either feel it's better, or they have their security strategies that enforce that. They need to
Yeah.
have full instance that just for them. So
Got it.
that's why we have GitLab dedicated, where you have a totally separated cloud account
Mm-hmm.
in which the full GitLab installation is installed. We are maintaining that, but you're the solely
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
now the question is that also a requirement for the runners? If you have a dedicated GitLab, do you also want to have a fully isolated runner pool or not? I can imagine people will have different needs. And that's
Okay.
in fact
And
something
do we
that
know product what product is asking? Like what our customer are asking? Because like I would assume if they're already wanting to go for a dedicated, the biggest selling point is the isolation. So I would find it really weird that they want isolation
that's
for their Git platform, but not for their CI platform.
that would be my assumption as well.
So, yeah, okay.
But you know, like I said, we should be like we should plan this platform in a way that we can support both scenarios.
I agree. I agree.
And then we can also, and again, that will be not a technical thing, that will be a product offering in this case. I can imagine ourselves that we can provide dedicated users, hey, you want dedicated runner, then okay, we can give it, and give it like we do that today, so fully isolated. That brings some cost, but then, because we may prefer to have these common pools, because that will just simplify our maintenance, we can say, hey, or we can put it here on that
I would,
shared runner, by I don't know, maybe a smaller price, and that will be, you know, a
yeah.
choice of the customer, what they prefer. We definitely
How?
need to be ready for provide fully isolated
Yeah.
environments.
I fully understand the smaller price because you're not having a dedicated runner manager for you, so less compute dedicated to you. But how will this simplify configuration per se? Because like you as an operator on the runner platform have no control of what the user requests, if they request a fully isolated one or a common one, right? Like it's whatever they send a request, it gets provisioned automatically, right? So from a platform perspective, the complexity is quote unquote already has to be solved because like they send an API request, is it fully isolated or not? If it's fully isolated, I have to go through all these account creation, so on and so forth. If it's not, I'll use an existing runner manager, right? So um, the complexity is solved on day zero, quote unquote, because like you have to support, like we need to support both, for example, right?
Yes, but you have less things to maintain. You have less projects to look for. You have less projects where you need to track
Yeah,
quotas and or request their updates. You have, even
but
in
but
form
you have no
of
control over that number, right? Because technically we can like technically people can just always request fully isolated, and then we still have
th-
to
they
do that.
they can, but still, if like I'm saying this for myself. I
Yeah,
don't know what our customers will
yeah,
want. I
no.
only know that we already need to have shared spaces because
Mhm.
we need that for ourselves. Like we have this today, these private runners that run on .com, that run on dev, because we are building packages on dev and having a lot
Yeah,
of GitLab tests on dev. And that itself means we need to have a way to provide that shared space where we could
and
reuse cache, etc. But we also need to have full isolation. So we need to provide both. What are
playing
use
the devil's advocate there, are we using private runners as a shared pool purely because it's really hard to provision a runner manager? Because as far as I remember, the cache is namespace bound, right? So the cache for dev and the cache for com is still separated from an object storage perspective. It's not really shared, right?
Yeah, true, true. However, we have, for example, on our private runners, we have configuration where the builds directory is hosted on a volume, and I don't remember now the quirks of that configuration, but all of GitLab Rails project clones, if they
Hmm.
hit the private runner, they are using the same space.
Yeah, the bundle. Yeah.
So like even in that way, that was something that at some moment did reduce the space usage,
But the
did speed up the jobs.
correct me if I'm wrong, the builds directory is also per runner section in the config.toml, right?
Not per runner with Docker executor. It's isolated for every project because by default it's in a special volume. And
Yeah.
here on our private runners, we mapped that volume to the host. So
Okay.
now different if a job lands on the same reused machine, even
Hmm.
if it's from a different fork of the GitLab Rails project, it was reusing that space. So there are some ways how we can use the fact that different GitLab installations are sitting in the same place.
Mm.
But yes, one of the big reasons why we started using these private runners for different places is that it's easier for us to provide just another worker with another
Hmm.
token in config toml than provide a full new runner manager, a full new like we are not talking about Docker machine now because we are moving away from that. And with Fleeting, we need to prepare auto scaling group with the instance template. So
Hmm.
in this scope, it would be easier to just reuse these things if possible. So and like having a single runner manager that can handle multiple different instances, especially if we're talking about the reality with Kubernetes, if we'll succeed on that.
Hmm.
you know, until we reach a moment where we need to scale that horizontally because we just don't fit into some cloud limits, and we prefer to use another project instead of just requesting
Yeah.
increases here.
I mean, the project
We
limits.
we we may we may fit a lot of different workloads that we have today into a single Kubernetes cluster, just with different configurations that are
I
executed.
mean, before we hit, I'm pretty sure we'll hit the cluster API, like the API Kubernetes limits themselves to like spin up and spin down pods and things like that, way before we hit the cloud limits we
We
currently have.
we
So
we
yeah.
will. We will, but take a look on, we have today runners that are called Linux large AMD 64,
Mm-hmm.
Linux X large AMD 64, Linux 2X large AMD 64. They execute few jobs an hour
Mm-hmm.
because some of them are even limited to
Yeah.
just premium and ultimate. They cost you usage or cost of usage is bigger. People use them only where they need them, but we have three dedicated runner managers for each offering. We have three
Yeah.
separate projects for each offering because we've been just following the way how we execute things
No,
today.
no, I agree. I think
All
the
of that,
size,
all of that we could probably fit into a single cluster, multi-zonal cluster to have HA, a single cluster with just three different workers on a runner manager pod
yeah, I agree. I agree.
for
Uh,
each
I think
offering.
I think that makes sense. So, uh, I I don't like from management perspective. I think it makes sense to have to break the pattern we currently have, where one size equals a set of runner managers, a one-to-one relationship, right? Where we could, with the new structure, we can break it where a single runner manager can offer multiple sizes, because at the end of the day, the size is the VM or the execution place that changes, not the runner manager itself, right? Especially for the Kubernetes or Docker machine. So I'm looking a little bit at the private runner configuration here, and I don't see anything that we share between like POM and dev. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because
Mm.
do we ever have a scenario? It doesn't seem like, at least from what I see here, like from a build there,
Um, we may
we I
had we may had that removed. Uh,
because
that
the runner
that
manager is still a separate VM at this point, but even with Docker machine and even with Kubernetes, right? So it can't really share volumes from the runner manager to the runner execution environment, right? Um,
mm, that was not from the runner manager. That was
yeah,
on the autoscaled VMs. I
VM
think I
exactly.
th I think we already removed that because we moved to a different way
Yeah.
of improving the performance. But we had that thing like the build directory was mounted to the host of the
Hmm.
ephemeral VM. And then no matter if what fork it was able to
Yes.
use it.
But
Now,
for the same instance, fork of the same instance, right? Because even forks don't go cross instances, GitLab
true,
instances.
true, true.
And
That
if I remember correctly, also each runner section had a specific template of
Docker
creating Docker
machine,
machines.
yes,
So
yes, true, true.
uh,
That indeed wouldn't be shared here. True. That was my mistake.
yeah, no
But
worries. I'm just
no,
remembering
no,
from
no,
my
no.
archives 4 years
Thanks.
ago. So yeah.
Thanks. That was my mistake. But still, what I said a moment before about these three different sites for
Yes.
which
I
today we
think the
have
sizing, yeah, the sizing makes
fully
perfect sense.
fully dedicated stuff, we can bring that to a single place. And from our perspective, that make things easier because instead of maintaining nine different projects, I need to maintain only, let's say, three of them. Instead of
Yes, I agree.
maintaining nine different runner manager instances, here I could have probably a single multi-zonal cluster, Kubernetes cluster,
Mhm.
with just three different runner pods, each in different
Yeah,
zone.
no, I agree.
That simplifies things from our perspective because with a stupid thing like runner version update, we have three times less places where we need to execute some automation that will change
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
So if we can fit multiple customers of self-managed or dedicated runners into a single runner workspace, runner environment, that will simplify maintenance. That will just make less
Okay.
amount of places to maintain. But that definitely needs to be a user's conscious decision. Like if you're on GitLab.com, we already assume that you are okay with shared workspaces. But if
Mm-hmm.
you are on dedicated or if you have your self-hosted instance, I expect requiring fully isolated environment for the runners will be also what the customers will want. So
Yep.
we will need to support that. From the other hand, we would really prefer if we could fit as many of users in the single
No, I
environment
agree.
to just
I agree.
reduce the just the number of infrastructure we'll need
Yeah.
to take over.
Yeah.
So
I
both
guess,
both will need to
yeah,
be supported.
that makes sense. I guess my personal um worry with cells, at least, right? Like one problem that it's gonna solve for hopefully it's gonna solve for us is the fault isolation problem, right? If a single database goes down, it's not affecting 100% of the users, it's only affecting, let's say, 32% if we have three cells deployed, right? Um, do you think we should try and like I'm not saying again, I'm not saying the runner platform needs to live inside of a cell. It could be separate things. When we provision a cell, we just send an API request. I'm happy with that and just say, hey, I want the cell to be fully isolated, for example. So it brings the default isolation benefits that we get of, I don't know, if a single user, there's abuse on a single cell and saturates the runner platform, the runner manager or the runner queue. It only saturates it for 32% of the users rather than 100% of GitLab.com, right? So, and from a cost perspective, as you mentioned, runner managers is not the big cost, it's the hosted, the idle machines. That's a big cost, right? So, but with Kubernetes, we can potentially solve that as well. So, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
I'm just thinking out
but
loud.
but
Like,
but like look on this abuse example you
mm,
provided. If we will go that way that we've been proposing in this issue, so that we will have just the same runners for all GitLab.com, and with every each new cell, we will just bring new workers to just
hmm
have this shared workspace with endpoints of different cells to be supported. We still will be defining some limits for every worker. That will probably get
mm,
some over provisioning, but it's not
yes,
that if on cell number one you will have an abuser that will generate million of jobs and they will instantly get scheduled. It will not eat all capacity on the
yes,
runners.
you're
It
right.
will
Because
eat the capacity of that worker. And like you know the runner configuration. We have the concurrent and we have the limit.
the limits,
Now
yes,
now it will be we can either have like the concurrent to be sum of all limits, and then if we hit some number that we think goes beyond a single runner process capabilities, then we are starting to spreading that further. But we also can set like, okay, we want to have the concurrent, the global concurrent on the level of 2000 because we
yeah,
know we will fit that. And then we want to have 20
per
workers,
runner section.
each of them able to run 1,000 jobs.
Yep.
That's a huge over provisioning, but it means that we can shuffle some of the workload. But if we will have a single worker that gets fully saturated, we still have this second 1,000
hmm
that is
hmm
available to be shared
For the
between other
others,
workers.
yes, yeah,
So that's a matter of in fact defining some initial rules of how we would like to fit that to feel confident it's okay, and then we look on the metrics and we see what's the standard usage. We can adjust the
yeah,
numbers, and if we feel we will have abuser, we can go more conservative on that. If we feel that that will probably not happen and just let's wait, if it will ever happen, we can get more crazy on that over provisioning and then go back to more conservative calculations if we really
Yeah,
hit that problem. That
makes
is
sense.
still a place where we can fix things. More problematic part is on the GitLab side, because if on the GitLab side something in the GitLab CI core is down, then
Mm-hmm.
whole GitLab is down. But here we'll have
Yeah,
this separation done by cells. And on
yeah,
the runners, we still have a way to somehow separate one or worker from another
yeah.
by this over
And
provisioning
And
thing.
imagining another scenario, and again, I'm just thinking out loud scenarios on what could fail. So imagine we have a single runner manager, like two sets of runner managers for all of the cells, right? And we're reaching the capacity on these runner managers. So the obvious choice is let's provision the third runner manager, right? Does that mean that now when we provision the third runner manager, do we have to register, like how would that work? Like
No, we will
will that
we will not register new runners.
okay.
From GitLab 16.0, I think we have a new registration flow where it's built into the system that the authentication token can be reused across multiple instances. And here, when we have, like, let's talk about, we have today a single cell, and we
Mm-hmm,
want to provide a single runner configuration to it. So
mm-hmm,
we register this runner in GitLab. We get an
mm-hmm.
authentication token that will be stored somewhere in Vault. And then our platform is provisioning runner for that. And we start low because there are no customers. Let's say we're
Yeah.
back into 2013 where GitLab.com had just few passionates that were using it. We have no customers, we have no workloads, we start providing that platform. So our platform is scheduling a single runner manager with some space to execute jobs, and there we have this single worker with that token. But the time goes by and we have more and more users, we have more and more jobs. At some moment, we see that this single runner is not able to handle more because we either hit the limits of what the runner process can do or we hit limits of the cloud project. We decide to scale horizontally. So we create a second replica of that runner configuration. It's identical. It uses
Oh,
exactly
okay.
the same token. You don't need to do anything on the GitLab side because now you have two separate stacks that use the same token, call back with this token to GitLab. From GitLab perspective, it's just still a single runner that's asking for jobs. And
Interesting. Okay,
and
so technically, so this is my local on JDK. So technically, I can just copy paste it and run to GitLab runner processes on the same config.toml file.
if this will be on the same computer, you may hit some problems because
Okay, but let's
we
imagine
yeah,
I
you copy that file to a virtual machine that you create. You start two runner processes
yeah,
from this identical config tom file.
interesting. Okay.
They both will work from GitLab. Even in GitLab, even I don't have now a place to look on that. If you are a group owner in any group at GitLab that has runners, you can go to the group view. You have the build section runners with the new runners management pages. Open any of the runners, and you will have something called runner managers or something like that with an expandable list where you can see all remote different instances that called you back with the same token,
Yeah.
with their RP addresses, with information about their versions, executor, etc., etc.
Got it. Okay,
So
so that's a new thing I wasn't
here
aware.
we are growing in this single cell. We are going beyond one the single let's call it shard as we call this today, what a single
Yeah,
shard can fit. So we just create another replica of that shard that uses the same token. Now
got it.
we reach a moment in GitLab where we need to create a new cell. So for that cell, we register a new runner because runners are registered in cell context. So we need to do a new registration. Now we have two tokens. So we, let's say, add the second worker, we fit the concurrent and limits in a way that we feel it will work well. So now we have two replicas of runner shard that are now handling two cells. But the second cell is growing. We again have so many jobs that we are reaching limits of the shard. We create a third replica of that shard. It now again uses the same two tokens. So we have now six different workers with
Yeah.
two different tokens that are calling to GitLab. One is calling to GitLab and is routed to the cell number one. The second one is calling to GitLab.com and is routed to cell number two.
So yeah. So technically, mm, we can have a single instance runner per cell. Like for example,
Yes,
imagine shared GitLab org runner.gitlab.com, and this on the backend side of things will be potentially 20 runner managers
yes.
requesting jobs. Okay. So having four runner managers here is quote unquote purely a legacy thing. Technically, we can have a single runner manager.
Yes. At some moment on GitLab.com, all of that you can see on this list will disappear. We
Hmm.
will we will make new registration, and that will be a single registration for some specific configuration
Size,
we
yeah,
want to
size
provide.
tags, whatever. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, size tags like Kubernetes also opens us possibilities to maybe play differently with sizes that we provide because with Kubernetes we can have the resource requests. So
Hmm.
if we will succeed on switching to Kubernetes executor, we will need to find out how we can track billing for that. But at some moment, I expect we will change how we assign such kind of I want to have just more or less space for my job. That means we may have even less registered runner entities in GitLab.
Got it.
But initially probably we will just go easy, register multiple runners that provide different configurations so that we don't need to rework the billing mechanism instantly
Yeah.
and make it another step. But then we will have like we want to have small Linux runner CMD64. We register that once and reuse that token on 5, 20, few thousand runner managers. We want to bring the same token to the second cell. We do a registration there. And the only thing we need to have is an admin account token that is capable to register the runner. And that
Yep.
token will already have information how to be routed to that cell, or we will need to point some cell identifier in the request. So that may be a change we'll need to make available in the API in the Terraform provider to make that automation. But that's something we need to have anyway, and that will be uh, I think quite easy to be added because I think the user accounts are going to be global, right? They are not cell scope.
No, well, right now in Protocells, they're gonna be cell local. Um, uh, for now to begin with. So
So if I have today my account on GitLab.com, then with this account I will be not able to be added to any of the projects on the new cell.
yeah, correct. That's gonna be initially like that. Now the reason I'm kind of stumbling a little bit is because um, we have a new terminology called organizations, right? Which is something on top of top level groups. So
Mm-hmm.
right now we have, like for example, at GitLab, we have GitLab org and GitLab com as two top level groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we're building something on top of it, which is organizations, and we're using that for database sharding. reasons, right? So we'll have a GitLab Inc. organization, we'll have multiple top-level groups, and every table in the database is sharded by the organization or like something that's inherited from the organization, like project ID or whatnot, right?
Hmm.
Um, so the way that it's going to work is a user initially when you create an organization, a user belongs to a single organization. So it's the same as quote unquote it is today in a way, right? Like your GitLab username that you use for work is only used for work. Like if you leave GitLab, that user will get blocked, right? Because that's how our current process works, and single sign-on only works for your username and so on and so forth. Um, so we're going to have a one-to-one relationship with an organization. Now, the admin stuff is still something that we need to figure out at a later stage. But for now, when you provision a cell, you will have a separate account, admin account for that cell.
Okay.
Just as a corner to cut for speed reasons. So yeah,
Okay. Okay. But in scope of we're talking about, that even make things easier because
yeah,
then you provision another cell, you create there a user account that will be dedicated for managing runners. You
mm-hmm,
create a token that has the rotation and runner management capabilities.
mm-hmm,
And that token already has a routing information that will point it to this specific cell. So
yeah,
when we get that token and when we place it into our platform automation, how that will be done, it's something we are going to design still. But we give that token to our platform. We give it the GitLab com URL, and
mm-hmm.
we request instance runner, and it goes to GitLab. GitLab router
Technically, it
sees
won't be
that
into
it's
GitLab.com URL, right? That's another part that we have to figure out because right now on GitLab.com, at least we don't give it GitLab.com, we give it an internal URL for ingress and egress costs as well, right? So um, that's another tricky part with Protocells. So Protocells are going to be provisioned in AWS. So ideally, the runners should also be running in AWS to prevent any cross-cloud communication. And ideally, that should happen through some kind of private link. So all clone traffic goes through internal network rather than a public network as well. Um,
interesting. Why we are creating protocells in AWS and not Google Cloud?
um, because the tooling we are using to provision cells is GitLab dedicated, basically. Uh,
Okay.
and and GitLab dedicated on GCP as it works somewhat, but there's a lot of work that needed to be done,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more of a 1 year
Okay,
amount
but
of work to get it ready for production. So we're going with AWS for that.
okay, but wasn't the idea that with cells we want to have a single GitLab com that in the background is spread
Yes, that,
across?
that that's the case. Yes.
So we are
Um,
still going to go through GitLab com.
But if for the run, like not for the run, our runner managers at least that's what I'm thinking right now. Because we don't have to go through the route, like we don't have to go through the
Well,
routing because the way the routing works is at least for now. Let me share my screen again. So you see this runner token, right? Like it is not the normal runner token. It is what we call the routable tokens. So this
mm-hmm,
one has a payload saying, "Hey, this token belongs to cell two, cell three, whatnot," right? And it
mm-hmm,
grows through HTTP router, which is running on Cloudflare and saying, hey, this token belongs to cell two, so I'm gonna proxy this request to cell two rather than the existing GitLab.com, right? So from a user perspective, if I'm a user and register runner, it will still be GitLab.com, right? But
mm-hmm.
it is the case for us today on Chef repo. We're not using GitLab.com for um, and not private. Let's do shared
Yeah,
runners.
you're talking about the CA gateway stuff.
It's the CI gateway, right? So the URL or the clone URL or whatever is specific to our own internal gateway because of ingress and egress costs.
Yes.
So um, the routing that we're building only works on, right now, at least, only works on Cloudflare workers. So if we don't put in a specific URL on the runner manager to point to a specific cell, then it has to go through the public internet, which will incur all the ingress
Okay.
and egress costs that we
Okay,
we, we try to say
but
before.
if we will have specific URLs or at least specific domain names for each
Yes,
cell,
yes,
from the runner perspective, what I need is a valid
URL.
admin token
Hmm.
with runner management capabilities, so I can, in the automation, register that runner. I need to
Hmm.
have an URL to GitLab.
Hmm.
For me, it doesn't matter. Is it gitlab.com and the request will be routed, or is
Yeah,
it the cell
yeah,
specific
yeah, yeah, yeah.
domain name? And then the only thing that we need to worry about is like we definitely will like to have some private links to GitLab backend to follow the idea of CA gateway, at least for the runners that we will be providing for our own GitLab instances. Like if we
Yes.
own both the runner and GitLab side, we definitely should use some private networking to reduce the,
Yeah.
the the cost of that data transfer. But also we need to follow what we have today on these Linux runners, where we set back the remote URL in Git configuration, because users from the other way, they will want to go through gitlab.com. They will go to gitlab.com to their
Yes. Yes.
project path. They will log in and they don't care that this is some other part of the
Understand.
infrastructure on the other cell. They work in a gitlab.com world,
Yep. Yep.
which means that like we had this problem when we introduced CI gateway. We left this CI gateway URL, and a customer like reached us right after that saying my Maven packages are now messed up because
Mm,
the name of the package is automatically derivated from the Git remote
yeah.
URL, and you now messed up this remote URL. You messed up my packages. They are now not working for my customers. Fix that. But
Yeah.
that's easy to done. Like this is just another edge case we need to have in mind when defining that configuration way. That we will have some we will have some customers, like in this case the internal customer, where we want to have fully internal flow of the data, but we need to provide that for the user as a gitlab.com usage experience.
Yeah.
And
That
then
makes
we will
sense.
have, and then with the private links is anyway something we'll need to support in different ways, because dedicated customers are using private links to their own networks
Hmm.
to access GitLab, to access the runner, so that runner can access some of their private stuff in their own data centers or offices. So this is something we already have in mind when planning how to design this new platform.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess these like I guess that's something that I should probably try and make it more clear in that interlock issue that what our requirements are is that we're running on AWS, and that hopefully there's uh, private link set up so it goes through uh, the private internet, and that runner manager, like the runner platform, can accept both a GitLab URL and a clone URL or whatever we called it. I can't remember the configuration field, but
Yes,
the
clone
thing
URL.
that you clone URL, the thing you just explained. So I guess that's something that we need to make it more clear to you folks like what we require from the hosted runner platform, right?
No, there's also other possibility. Like we didn't do that with runners here. It was just felt easier to provide this specific addressing, but we can always tell the place where the runner exists, whether it will be a Kubernetes pod or a full instance like today. We can always say, hey, gitlab.com domain is this list of IP addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as GitLab backend will accept its specific domain name for the cell and GitLab.com, if reached directly with this domain name, then the configuration can still point to GitLab.com. We'll just spoof DNS to say, hey, to reach GitLab.com, go through that IP address, and that IP address will be routed through some private link. Then we don't need to play with any addressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of provisioning the environment and telling it that to reach GitLab.com, you shouldn't go to the public Cloudflare IP, but to the private IP we
Yep.
tell you to do. And
Yep.
then it works like from the job execution perspective, it works like it would be just plain old GitLab.com clone and an interaction. Uh, we just route it differently.
Yeah, I guess that's something we have to figure out how the internal traffic is gonna work. But um, yeah, we need a private link per cell, and then we set up that private link communication with the runner manager wherever that runner manager lives. So then that's also another part. I know we're over time, so feel free to tell me you have to go. Um,
I still
or
have 15 minutes, I think.
okay,
Quickly look into my calendar. Yeah, I have 15 minutes.
okay. Is so every so we have to use private link. It seems like no matter what, right? So this means if we go with a runner manager with multiple workers connecting to multiple cells, the runner manager needs to have, as far as I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the way private link works is the private link connection has to be established from both ends, right? So,
I d- I don't know how private links in AWS work. Haven't
okay.
used them yet.
It would be the same for GCP. Let's imagine we still want cells in GCP at some point. So with the way with private service connect works is you have a consumer and a producer, right? So
Yes,
um,
yes.
the producer in this case will end up being GitLab, the GitLab cell, and the consumer will end up being the runner manager, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way we set up the connection is inside of the cell, we say, hey, we want the consumer from GitLab Runner to be able to access this producer, private service connect. And inside of the runner manager, we say we want to connect to this producer for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means if we share the runner manager has to connect to all private service connect producers, right? So
Yes.
from a security perspective, is that like a good design? Because like if somehow something gets access to the runner manager, that means it technically can pivot off to all of the cells rather than a
Um,
single cell, because the private
it's
service connection um, is set up to all cells, right?
it's not like first thing is that if we will then use these multiple workers for different cells, what I thought about using GitLab.com name will definitely not work because we'll be
Mm,
able to spoof only one cell IP address
yeah.
and other workers would need to use a dedicated addressing anyway. So that's depends on what we will finally decide how we want to support cells. We either
Hmm.
will need to use dedicated URLs and
Mm-hmm.
somehow revert them in the user environment, or we
Mm-hmm.
will be able to spoof that it will if we will have a runner manager for each cell. Now, if we have multiple service connections here, uh, I wouldn't say it's a security problem because
Okay.
we still should have firewall rules and like the only because it's not just the runner manager, the job itself also will need to be able to connect there. The way more data we pass in Git clone than in the whole runner API
Mm-hmm.
communication. So if we are talking about using private links to reduce the cost of data transfer,
Mm-hmm.
that needs to be available also for the job environment. So either the
Yes.
VMs or the
Yes.
Kubernetes pods.
For sure. Yes. Yeah.
Uh,
That's
yeah,
even a riskier thing, right? Because we're
that
running on
yeah
trusted code. So
that
yes.
feels way riskier because we run the arbitrary code. But now, what that private link or private service connector should allow is only to access the web interface of GitLab, which means we should be like we like today you can reach gitlab.com from every place on the world,
Mm-hmm.
but you can reach only the HTTPS endpoint. We don't
Mm-hmm.
expose anything else. Like we also have SSH for
SSH.
Git SSH, right? But in case of CI/CD jobs, in the part that we own, we fully maintain, where we want to have this private connection, we use Git HTTPS. So
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that this private link should expose is the HTTPS endpoint from GitLab. Anything else
Yes.
shouldn't go anyway. And then when you reach that, you need to authenticate because there is nothing you can do from the job
Mm-hmm.
without authentication. Like if you will not, if you try to reach something that doesn't require authentication, you can do it anyway from your laptop from anywhere in the world. You
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
write
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
request, and if it's a public project on cell number 7, you will still reach it because it's a public project, and
Yes,
it
I agree.
and it gives you everything. And
But
for
but
for other
technically,
things, we require authentication anyway. So
yes, I agree.
if I run it from my runner that has connection to each cell, or if I run it from my runner that runs on my laptop, which uses gitlab.com, it still reaches the same place. It still needs to either reach
Mm,
something that is public or it needs to authenticate. And if it's not authenticated, then the request is banned. So I'm not sure
yeah,
if
you're
we have
right.
here a security concern. If that would work, like VPC peering, where all of the traffic is allowed, then that's a bigger problem because we need to make
Yeah,
sure that firewall disallows any of this interconnection. But with private service connector, you expose a specific service. So here we would expose HTTPS endpoint of our HA proxy nodes.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, because I'm just thinking out loud. A scenario, let's say they get root access on the runner manager. So that means they have all the tokens, right? Those tokens, they don't have to send a request from that runner manager to request a new job. They can still do that locally on their laptop and um, still clone a private repository if they want to from their laptop. Like Private Service Connect is not protecting anything at that point, right? Because they go through the public internet. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Um, cool. Um, I don't want to take up more of your time. This has been really helpful for me. I appreciate it. Um, so I think some action items for me is to try and make it more clear what requirements we have for cells specifically around AWS, private link, figure out how private link is going to work, figure out how cloning is going to work.
Yes.
And
definitely please write down that we are going to work with AWS in this first
Okay.
scenario because we've been focusing mostly on the Google side for now because
Okay.
migrating dedicated runners to this unified platform is a thing for future. We want to figure out automation, the interfaces. We also need to fix GitLab.com runners because in 2 years Docker machine is going away from GitLab runners. So we need to move away from that much earlier. And like we want to have this unified platform, but we want to reach it, in few phases, in few steps. That will
Yeah.
not be like bringing dedicated will not be the immediate requirement. And so we've been all time thinking in Google scope. If
Yeah. Okay.
now cells are going to be in AWS, then we either need to accept that we'll be going from cloud to cloud, or we need to be prepared to work in AWS world from the very beginning. That will
Yeah.
be an important information. I don't
Yeah.
I I don't say we will do AWS at start. Maybe we will not, and we will need to accept the cost of going from one cloud to another. Uh, but that is a very important information to
Yeah.
put into the
Yeah.
equation in when we'll be making decisions.
Okay.
Okay, so how to
So
work.
is Runner's platform like what's the number one customer you're like what's customer zero in the hosted platform at the moment? Is it GitLab.com, the existing GitLab.com? Is it dedicated? Is it self-managed?
Uh, I,
Um,
I think the number zero will be definitely the existing.com.
okay.
Uh, one of the requirements placed by management is uh, we need to be ready to support sales, we need to be ready to support dedicated because we will definitely grow here and we need to prepare the platform for that growth. But
No.
when working on it, like this is the roadmap that we ended
It's
with.
not loading. It's telling me that you started sharing your screen, but it's not showing your screen.
Give me a second. Try it again. Can you see it?
No.
Okay,
Uh,
something is
I'm
again.
sure there's a Linux joke here somewhere that I used to tell
Probably,
you.
probably yes, probably yes. I'll send you on a chat.
Yes, please.
If you could open it and try to share, maybe you will succeed with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the roadmap that we talked about yesterday. Like dates here are for now, I think more guesses. This is still something we are working on, but this reflects, I think, the way how we want to work. So you can see in the left lane that there is some design and foundations work that we'll be doing. But concurrently on the right, called phase one, we want to start experimenting with Kubernetes, and we will start with our internal workloads. So some subset of jobs from today's private runners, and then we want to experiment on that because if we will mess up something here, only we will suffer from that. So it's a less risk, but also this is probably a place where we can get a huge amount of cost reduction if we will succeed with Kubernetes because we like
Mm-hmm.
running our private runners today, I think defines half of the whole GitLab.com hosted runners costs. So we
Mm-hmm.
seek to we seek to get a big win on cost reduction here. So we are
Yeah.
going to start with that, and that means we
Have
are
we
definitely
validated
going to
those?
start with.
Have we validated those cost reductions somehow?
Now this is what will show us if this is
Okay.
if this is real. We need to start playing with that. We need to start experiment with this Kubernetes based platform. Like the estimate provided by few sources is that we should see probably even up to 80% cost reduction. I couldn't get information where's that sourced from, how it was calculated that it will be 80%, but the common understanding and common feeling is that we will we will get cost reduction with Kubernetes
So,
because we will
because I
be able
imagine,
to compress workloads on the instances
yeah, but I
the
would
way
imagine
that
we
we can
still have
today.
to. I would imagine we still have to run some idle Kubernetes nodes so we can quickly run pods on those idle Kubernetes nodes, right?
I
So we
don't
would
know.
still have some. Okay.
I don't know. Kubernetes itself has a lot of magic for autoscaling.
Yes.
And that's not only our opinion, it's an opinion common in the infrastructure industry that Kubernetes solved a lot of these autoscaling problems. So why we try to solve it again?
No, 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 I agree.
Well,
I
we
guess
could
my question is the idling for runner is there for a quick way to provision to be able to run a job, right? Um, it's still we still need to have an idle machine to be able to schedule
uh,
a pod fairly quickly.
probably probably
Yeah.
yes. Probably yes, but even if that's true, then still with Kubernetes by design, we will be compressing workloads on the same instances. It's just a matter of finding an isolation solution that will fit into our security needs.
Yeah.
Uh,
And is it really complex? Again, I'm not like I don't want to take more of your time, but like something that I'd like to talk to you one time in the future is like, is it really compressing? Because like if we have a VM with 12 cores and each job uses 2 cores, that means it can run only six pods, right? Because of the requests and limits we're going to set to it. Is running a VM with 12 cores better than running 6 VMs with 2 cores, like from a cost perspective? Like I'd be curious
that's
to,
you know
to think about that.
that's a matter of how over provision we will use,
Mm,
because if we'll have one-to-one match to what we have today, I don't expect to have any cost reduction.
yeah, yeah,
But you can bring some over provisioning with Kubernetes,
yeah.
like
Okay.
and I don't know, like this is an information that was brought by few people, that we expect if we will go to Kubernetes, we will see cost reduction. Is it true? I don't know. And the big
Hmm.
part of that roadmap is to validate that. If we can
Yeah,
provide secure enough isolation to fit our multi-tenant module, if we will really have a significant enough cost reduction to like make it valid to move here, if we will get the speed up in environment creation, because this is
yeah,
also one of the things that are market us. We are slow on creating space. Like if we have the idle machine, it's okay, but if we run out of them and we need to wait for new machine to be created, today it's 30, 70 seconds. With Kubernetes, people say it will be slower. So these are questions we will need to find answers for. And
got it.
when we
Okay,
will
okay,
find
okay.
these answers, then we will decide if that is the path we want to go or not.
Understood. So Kubernetes is still not a done deal yet.
No, this
For
is this is something we want to experiment with because it promises a lot, and I really hope it will do. Like
okay,
this is
makes
not the
sense.
first time we're talking about Kubernetes in scope
Yeah,
of our hosted runners.
yeah, for sure.
So we're finally in the place where we don't want to talk anymore. We now want to start experimenting
Okay,
with that,
okay.
because we think we see a
That makes
security
perfect sense.
the solution for security problems, but that's still not like written in stone. That's still something we
Yeah.
need to validate. But to validate that, we need to start moving some workloads there, and for that we will start with our internal runners. So at least initially, we will be playing still in Google Cloud. But if you say that cells are going to be AWS from the beginning,
Hmm.
and for probably a while,
Hmm.
we need to be ready to go
Yeah,
AWS soon.
yeah.
Or
Okay.
we need to be ready to accept an increased cost of going cross clouds.
Cross
That's
cloud.
also a possibility. Like,
Yeah.
it's all a
That
balance
would
that
make the
we'll need to
sales
find.
project even more expensive than it is. But so
I
so
would
we'll
say, I
see.
would say, I would say this increased cost is an investment. Like at
Yeah,
some moment we will definitely go to AWS. At some moment, cells will definitely go to GCP.
exactly.
So there will be a moment where we will cut that cost.
Yeah.
It's just a matter how fast we will be able to do that and where priorities will be thrown.
Okay. Awesome. I don't want to take up more of your time. I appreciate it, Thomas. Thank you so much. And have a nice day, man.
Thanks. And I think we will talk again soon.
Oh yeah,
I
probably.
assume we will have a lot more
Yes.
connection when we'll get closer to like what we are doing with the platform and how much ready for runners are you with the protocol.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Have a nice day.
Okay. See
See
you.
you.